Hi and welcome back. According to the United States Census Bureau, the number of unmarried partners living together in the United States nearly tripled in 2 decades from 6 million to 17 million, about 7% of the total adult population. But the more interesting part of the data is that divorcees make up a large proportion of older cohabitants. And this brings us to the first point of the 5 points why you're scared of marriage. Point number 1 is the fear of failure. Whether it's the experience of your own failed marriage or failed marriages, or the traumatic experience of watching your parents go through so much emotional turmoil due to their broken marriage, or just growing up surrounded and experiencing and witnessing broken marriages in the lives of your friends, families, and loved ones. So it makes sense for you to get to a point and say, okay, you know what, we're just going to live together, and if it doesn't work out, I can always take my things and leave. Of course, though that may not stave off the emotional trauma when you find that you're being cheated upon, which is one of the major reasons for divorce or broken marriages, because, well, if you ask any cohabiter, the emotional trauma and pain of being cheated upon doesn't really matter whether you have a legal document saying you're married or not, but at least it's going to save you from all the headache of legal proceedings. Even though the action is actually commendable of you not trying to repeat the same mistakes, trying to do the same thing the same way and expecting different results, I may still need to remind you that the problem is not really about the failed marriages or the failure that you're scared of, but the problem is understanding why either your past marriages failed, or those of your parents, or those of the people around you actually failed. Statistics from this same bureau also shows that you stand a 50-50 chance of succeeding in your marriage. But what I'll remind you is that it's not exactly 50-50 for everyone, because there are families where you would never hear of a broken marriage, while there are other families where it is a rampant pattern. So you need to understand, therefore, that kids coming from those two families don't have the same odds at the success in marriage. So what should interest you is finding out what makes the marriages in this particular community, this particular group work, and what is killing the marriages in my own community. Because once you understand what doesn't make it work, what is making it fail, and you correct that, then you can overcome the fear of failing in your marriage. In other words, the fear of marriage itself. The second reason why you're probably afraid of marriage is that you're afraid of a lifetime commitment. Of course, the word forever can be quite big and scary. You stand there and then you say, I take this person forever, or you say till death do us part, and it just feels like the universe keeps stretching and it never comes to an end. Like you just tied into this person. It's the only person you can do intimate things with. It's the only person you'll be waking up to in the morning, and that feels like you're locked up into something. And this is even particularly serious for people who have never really practice the habit of committing to anything in their lives. Perhaps you didn't commit to finishing a degree program in school, you didn't commit to a job more than a year or two. You've never really practiced or experienced or known what it feels like committing. You've always been a nomad. So even when it comes to marriage, the idea of a full lifelong commitment obviously would scare you. Well, what I'll say to you is your problem isn't so much about marriage as it's certainly or most likely a problem and an issue with commitment. Because if you're having trouble making a lifetime commitment in marriage, then there are high chances that you also struggle with commitment in several other aspects of your life. And if you check the most successful people in life, one trait they have is commitment. Commitment is a critical attribute for successful people. So if you can't commit to one thing to see it through to the end, then chances are there is a very limited amount of success you can experience in life. Having great kids and rearing them to be responsible contributors of society and carry on your name and legacy is a major one. Why? Because marriage remains the principle since the existence of mankind for having children and rearing them and to grow them to be responsible and to be equipped to face the real world. Now you may say, well, I can have my kids out of marriage, but the experience is not the same. I understand we are in the age of redefining things, but we must remember that you cannot redefine principles. You can't redefine marriage as much as you can't redefine gravity. Any honest psychologist would tell you that a majority of societal problems today can be traced back to dysfunctional families, in other words, dysfunctional marriages or the lack of marriages at all. So if you're scared of marriage because of commitment, then leave marriage for a moment and work on your commitment. Try to be more committed at work. Get a gym membership and try to be committed for as long as you possibly can. Volunteer at some organization and try to be committed as long as you possibly can. Once you get comfortable not being selfish, well, an issue to with commitment is that in a way it's selfish because you kind of have to sacrifice yourself for the interest and benefit of others. Once you have grown in your commitment in other areas of your life, you automatically grow also in your capacity to handle a lifetime commitment in marriage. The third reason is that you're afraid of losing your freedom. The idea of you no longer can live your life freely at your own whim and doing things at your own time and at your own pleasure. This particularly for men. For women, it's more like the fear of submitting. For a man, you have the liberty that you can go out and you return at any time. There is no one asking you, where were you last night? Why was this person texting you? What have you been up to? What did you do with the money you earned? And all of this just feels like a prison when you think about it. So you feel getting married will rob you of the freedom to live your life on your own terms without having to be accountable to anyone else. For women, the idea can be terrifying, especially for a woman who is, we can say, ambitious, has dreams, is pursuing her own plans, and, is up to doing something great with her life. The idea of being with someone who can just shut you down or who can tell you, no, you can't do that, no, you can't do this, just feeling like you're being caught up and locked in a cage or you're just trapped. It's quite terrifying, and enough and reasonable, it makes sense for anyone to be skeptical about getting married. But what I'll tell you is the key here is finding the right person, the person that is compatible with you in the same visions, the same dreams, the same passions, the same view of life, the same values, the same ethics. Someone you're very comfortable to be vulnerable around. That's both for men and women. The truth is, as a man, if you marry the right woman, them keeping you accountable is actually more freeing than you can imagine. It's actually a paradox, and I don't know if I can really put it in words, in the short video until you understand. But the idea is, once you know that you can trust this person and they are keeping you in check, you know that you kind of have your backside covered. So you have the freedom to explore more of your strengths, because when you're by your own, you kind of also have to see that you don't exceed boundaries, you don't go to excesses. So having someone that you trust and who trusts you, keeping you accountable, you know that they're after your best interests and they are not just trying to lock you down, but they're trying to keep you within the boundaries, within the lane. And if you're guaranteed that that area is taken care of, you can focus on accelerating and going as fast as you can. So in a way, it's more freeing. And it's the same thing with submission. Once you have someone, a man who really, really loves you, then submission becomes automatic and natural. It's like if you find someone who really loves you and envelops you with intense love, and that is good to you, what happens is you kind of just yield yourself to that love like a blanket. It's kind of, you want more of it. You're just saying, have me or have all of me. That is the idea of submission. The only fear comes in when the person is not the right person for you and they are not looking out for your best interest. Then you realize that you have to watch your back, at the same time trying to pursue or become yourself. The fourth point is too much responsibility, and this can, in our society where the man normally is considered the provider of the house, it might feel and sound like a lot, especially when the society is gradually changing again to disempower the man of the ability to actually provide for his house, to the point where now the man stands before the woman and he realizes that he can't meet any need in her life because she's already meeting those needs and even beyond, which only means that he will have to work even harder or take even more responsibilities to actually become, in quotes, a real man. On the other side, it just simply means that the man will have to be perhaps responsible for the woman, responsible for kids. And if it's in a kind of extended family culture, then by extension, the man also feels he's responsible for the family members of the person he's getting married to. And so all these responsibilities can be weighing, especially if you're not even stable financially or clear with what you want to do with your life. Then it's enough to freak you out, and you perhaps want to put a pin on that and say, well, I'm going to take a look at it later when I've sorted out these other things. Well, I'm not saying that it cannot also be overwhelming in terms of responsibilities for women, because the idea that you also have to, take care of a man, it's simple. Marriage is about taking care of each other. So if you're having trouble taking care of yourself, then you begin to wonder, okay, I have to take care of another person. And for a woman, you're like, could I be able to really meet his needs, cook food, take care of the kids and be there? There's a lot of responsibilities involved. And like I said again, if you're in this age where you have visions and dreams and passions and goals you're pursuing, it kind of becomes a little bit challenging. Now, this sounds very legitimate, but then for people who are already cohabitating, they're already taking a major part of that responsibility already, because in a way they are living like married people. But what I'll say to you is that responsibility, in a way, is another word for leadership. So the only way you handle responsibility is to grow in your leadership. So if your issue is that you're scared of the tremendous amount of responsibility, then the solution is to grow yourself personally, especially as far as leadership is concerned. Because to be parents, you basically be leading the kid, and that is a way of responsibility. So if you grow, you study, you develop yourself, you develop your potentials to become a wiser, more mature and stronger, smarter person, then you can handle more responsibilities. And in life, you can't run away from responsibilities, because life is all about being responsible. All you have to do is grow yourself and face it, and then you keep growing in the process. The fifth reason will be past traumas, and beyond, say, the traumas of divorce or of broken marriages. This is a trauma perhaps of a one-on-one experience you've had with men, or that you've had with women, that has just tarnished in your mind the image of this gender completely, that you think you don't want to have anything intimate to do with them. Most of the times it's physical violence, other times it's just abuse of trust. And so your heart has been seared and locked up, and so the idea of opening up for something romantic per se is out of the question. I must remind you that the objective of this video is not me trying to convince you to get married, but just to point to you some of the major reasons why people are afraid of getting married. Marriage or no marriage, the point of trauma must still be addressed. If you're suffering from past traumas, then the solution obviously is to go through therapy, is to process this pain, this trauma, this disappointment, this betrayal, until you get to a complete healing. Not necessarily because you want to still pursue marriage or anything for that matter. No, this alone in and of itself, it's a problem that warrants addressing. Once it's addressed, whatever happens next is up to you. And obviously, marriage is out of the question until it is addressed. So those are 5 most likely reasons why you're afraid of marriage. Of course, the list is not exhaustive, and I encourage you to share some of your own points. Maybe I missed some, or I didn't have some on this list, in the comments below. So thank you so much for watching. What points do you think I missed? Please share them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe and notification bell. I'm Buddha's Jumesi from Wisdom for Dominion. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. That's our time in this video. I believe you were inspired by it. Then give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new to this channel for more great content like this. Remember to take responsibility on what you learned today. This video is proudly sponsored by our patrons. You too can support this channel by visiting our Patreon page. The link is in the video description below. I want to say a big thank you to all our patrons out there. I am Buddha's Jumesi from Wisdom for Dominion. Thank you for watching, and see you in our next video.